This has been one long, grueling season of Survivor with honestly some of the best strategic moves that I've seen in a while too. This season we had people crashing out, people stalking each other, and just some good old classic fake idol fun. I mean, it was a lot. But my favorite part probably about this whole season was just how difficult it was to suss out the winner, up until the very end at least. I am super excited to recap this finale episode with you all, but before we get started, please make sure you hit that subscribe button below if you have not already. Even though Survivor has now come to an end, I talk about other reality TV shows on here too. We have The Traitor Season 3 coming up soon, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So once again, make sure you're subscribed for more reality TV recaps. Now, let's begin. Let's kick things off with the Final Four Immunity Challenge, which I'm not gonna lie was a little bit dull. You know, it was just pretty much your basic standard Survivor comp, nothing special here. Things did start to get a little bit intense towards the end though. There was a lot of back and forth between Rachel and Sam, but as we saw at the very end, Rachel was able to pull through and secure herself the win, winning her 4th individual immunity of the season. Wow. 4 immunities in one season is pretty impressive, I'm not gonna lie, and at this point, it was becoming pretty clear to me, as if it wasn't already, exactly where this episode was gonna go. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was already Team Rachel going into this episode, but at this point, with that 4th win, her stats became completely undeniable. Stuff like that is just literally impossible for a jury to ignore. Plus, they had made the previously on Survivor recap thing all about Rachel too anyway, so I was pretty sure I knew where this thing was gonna go. So now that Rachel is our final immunity winner, she now has the very, very difficult choice of deciding who to bring with her to the very final tribal council. Except for, not really. Yeah, this choice is actually not hard at all. This actually looked like it was one of the easiest no-brainer decisions that Rachel has had to make all season. Of course she's gonna bring Sue's ass to the end with her. Of course she is. Who else would it be? For one, they're the closest allies left in the game. That's already been established. And for two, Sue is the season's GOAT and everybody knows it no matter what she tries to claim in her confessionals. Sorry. So now we're in the situation where Teenie and Sam must face off against each other and fire, which neither one of them seems super comfortable doing at all, which is crazy to me. It's just wild to think that after all these years, people still go on the show and they go through the entire casting process, which takes a while, doing all of this without knowing how to make fire. Like, you know it's a possibility when you go in.
And I'm afraid of looking like an idiot. I'm afraid of everybody at home saying, why didn't you practice fire? And me saying, I don't know.
Now, Teenie is at least getting a little bit of help out there because people see Sam as much more of a threat, so they definitely don't want him making it through to the end. And at first during the challenge, it really looked like Teenie had this. You know, they had made the first flame and was the first one to really get a real fire going. But then out of nowhere, as we see, the freaking wind pulls through and decides to give Sam an edge. The wind is so effective here that Sam is actually able to rise up from the ashes literally and pull out the win at the very last minute. Wow. This moment was just mind-blowing to me. Like, I'm obviously not a weather girly or anything, but I'm trying to figure out why the wind was so different for Teenie versus Sam when they're sitting right next to each other. Like, they're not that far apart at all. I did feel very bad for Teenie at this one because it just didn't feel right, you know? I honestly don't have any notes for this one. I don't know what Teenie could have done to change this besides getting up from their seat to like try to cover up the fire or block the wind or something. I don't know. So sadly, this spells the end for Teenie, but on the other hand, this was a pretty amazing look for Sam, I'm not gonna lie. Some people really do put a lot of stock into the final fire making. I don't think I would if I was a juror, but enough do to make me start to wonder at this point if all this last minute motion from Sam could help him win some jury votes. With that, we officially have our final 3. Sam, Rachel, and Sue. Which means, of course, it's now time for the most exciting part of the finale, the final tribal council. I'll start off by talking about Sue's performance because going in, I don't think anybody was really expecting Sue to be a real contender here. So I thought the fact that her big reveal was just her age turned out to be very, very on character for her. She also gave us the funniest moment of the episode where she decides to tell Andy that trusting him was her biggest mistake in the game, only for Andy to simply not give a fuck at all.
Lied to me 3 times and you blindsided sweet Caroline. So believing you a 3rd time, that was my greatest mistake.
Awesome.
All jokes aside though, Sue's real biggest flex to me was her physical prowess during all those challenges. Say what you want about Sue, and I know a lot of y'all do, but that lady got a lot of muscle on her, okay? And she is very fit for her age. I'll give her that. Then we had Sam, who talked a lot about having to play a scrappy game and talked about how he was able to make it to the end despite being a huge threat who didn't really have to win many challenges. And I'll admit, Sam seems like he's somebody who is able to play well from both the top and the bottom. But he was getting a lot of pushback and getting called out here and there for some of the moves that he was claiming to make during the game. Overall, Sam's final tribal council performance specifically way exceeded my expectations. I thought he brought up some really good points about his game that even I didn't notice, like how he was a much bigger threat in the game for a lot longer than Rachel and still was able to make it to the same spot she did. But at the same time, we all saw that he had a lot less control over that second half of the game, which looked like that was where things started to fall apart for him. And finally, we have Rachel. Her big reveal was when she talked about having to sneak in and eavesdrop on her opponents when they were planning and plotting on voting her out that week. I thought this was the perfect way for her to kick off her story, and obviously this final tribal was the absolute best time to make this reveal. Now, she did get a little pushback here and there for having to rely on wins so much in order to get herself to the end, but I think that's overall a pretty weird reason to not vote for somebody, especially when they have the strategic moves to back it up. Of course, Rachel did get very lucky in this game, but to me it's like, who cares? Because if I was playing, I'd want that same luck too. She was able to play her idols and advantages very well, and overall I think that contributed to just how well-rounded her game was. So I thought that the final tribal council was fine overall. It just wasn't too tense or too dramatic. I mean, there was a little bit of back and forth between the contestants, but overall, as far as final tribals go, to me, this was very, very tame. I mean, look, Andy did get a little sassy at times, but hey, that's just Andy being Andy.
And you have the worst voting record of this final 3.
Yeah.
And so if you want my vote tonight, you really have to reconcile this.
The votes are eventually read, and as we all see, Rachel is crowned our winner almost unanimously too. Sam did end up getting 1 vote here, which kind of surprised me given just how good his final tribal council performance was. Honestly, I thought he did just as good as Rachel did, so I'm kind of shocked that he didn't get more votes. But Rachel did perform better for longer throughout the entire season as a whole. Plus, like I mentioned before, her stats are pretty hard to beat. Of course, I want to know, what do you think of Rachel as our winner? Are you happy she won? Or would you rather be someone else instead? Let me know in the comments below. I think that overall, I would rank this season in the middle as far as the new era is concerned. There was some incredible strategic gameplay showcased this season, and I definitely think that Operation Italy thing will be remembered for years to come. But there were also some times where things were a little bit more tame, and some times where it was pretty obvious who was going to go home next, so there's that. Overall, I think I'd give this season a solid 7. And as far as Rachel goes, I think I would give her an 8 as a winner because her game was so dominant, even though it wasn't perfect. No, she wasn't the most interesting player this season, but the winners usually never are. Instead, the winners usually have a good temperament and good emotional intelligence, and that seems to define Rachel pretty well. I would like to thank you all so much for following along and watching Survivor with me this season. It's always a blast coming on here and recapping with you all and getting all my crazy ideas out, so I look forward to doing it next season too. There's still some very interesting things happening in the reality TV world. We have season 3 of The Traitors coming up very, very soon. So once again, please make sure you're subscribed so you can stay tuned for that. I'll still be around, so I will talk to you all next time. But until then, bye.